Hello everyone, my name is Saad Brohi and I'm a researcher at this institute. And today I will be talking about the evolution of the UN. It's a privilege to be speaking at this session hosted by the Pakistan Institute for International Affairs on the United Nations at 80 Promises and Performance. My colleagues have already presented thoughtful perspectives. Some have highlighted the UN's achievements, while others have analyzed its shortcomings. In my remarks, I want to look at the evolution of the Nations, how it has changed over time, how it continues to adapt to global realities, and how it must evolve further in the years to come. When the UN was founded in 1945, the world was emerging from unimaginable destruction. The Charter of the United Nations gave voice to humanity's deepest hopes: peace, cooperation, and dignity. It promised that nations could build a system where dialogue would replace force, and where collective action could prevent catastrophe. In the, in the early years, the UN became central to decolonization, helping newly independent nations find recognition and legitimacy. It also created frameworks for peacekeeping, humanitarian assistance, and international law. Those were the formative years when the UN stood as a moral compass in a divided world. But the global landscape has changed profoundly. The challenges of our time are not the same as those of 1945. We now live sorry, we now live in an age of interconnected crisis, from climate change and cybersecurity to economic inequality and pandemics. These problems do not respect borders and they test the UN's ability to act collectively. Take the COVID 19 pandemic, for example. Between 2020 and 2021, the World Health Organization estimated that around 14.9 million people lost their lives directly or indirectly due to COVID 19. According to the UN report from the same period, the global economy suffered losses of about 8.5 trillion US dollars over just 2 years. Yet, even in the midst of that crisis, the UN's institutions continued to play an essential role, coordinating global vaccine distribution through COVAX, delivering humanitarian aid, and supporting vulnerable communities. It wasn't a perfect response, but it was a reminder that without the UN, international cooperation would have been even more fragmented and chaotic. The UN's evolution has not only been institutional but also conceptual. It, in its early decades, the focus was on preventing wars between states. Over time, the organization began to emphasize what we now call human security, the idea that peace depends not just on political stability, but also on justice, equality, and human development. That shift from protecting borders to protecting people represents one of the UN's most significant intellectual transformations. As we look to the future, I believe the next phase of the UN's evolution will depend on two critical areas. First, structural reform. The Security Council still reflects the power structure of the 1945. If the UN is to refrain legitimacy, it must become more representative and democratic, giving greater voice to Africa, Latin America, and emerging economies. Second, functional transformation. The UN needs to move from reacting to crisis reacting to crisis to preventing them. It should use data, technology, and regional partnerships to identify early risks, whether they are conflicts, environmental threats, or humanitarian emergencies before they escalate. In the end, the United Nations is not a perfect institution, but it is a necessary one. It stands as both a mirror and a measure of the world's ability to work together despite our differences. If the first 80 years were about building peace through institutions, perhaps the next 80 should be about rebuilding trust. Trust in dialogue, in shared responsibility, and in the idea that we still need each other to face what's coming. Because at its heart, the UN is not just a building or an idea. It is a living reminder that even in a divided world, cooperation is still possible and still worth striving for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh,